Welcome, lady friends. What's up? It's your girl here, Olivia, international life and business coach. If you're a creative and ambitious woman who wants to have breakthroughs not only in your business, your bank account, but also your brain, then this is the podcast for you, girlfriend. Get ready to rock your online business, master your social media presence, and monetize your passion from your mobile. Woo! It's time to elegantly strap on those lady balls and jump in. Are you ready to start slaying your side hustle? If so, then join me. Let's get started. In today's episode, I interviewed a woman, a very special woman, whose voice you might actually find familiar. If you've listened to episode 7, she left this beautiful testimonial at the end of this episode. So today I'm bringing her to you to talk about the unsexy side of business that nobody is talking about, that you need to know about as a small business owner, a sole trader, a female entrepreneur, or even a hobby business that might be moving into actually having a legitimate business. She has got 16 years of bookkeeping experience and is a quote-unquote unqualified accountant for the past 11 years. She's a wealth of knowledge and this is her zone of genius. I want to welcome to you Susana Targett. In this episode, it is full of practical information, and what I want to touch on is that you may not be an Australian, you may not have the same taxation laws and legal considerations as what we do with, entities or business names, but these are the sort of things that you need to be thinking about in your own country, in your own legal system, and from your own government. So there is a disclosure. This is more specific to the Australian government, the Australian taxation systems, but all of these principles and themes are going to be extremely important for you in your business as well. To be honest with you, this is not the sort of stuff that lights me up, but it is super important that you set your business up right. I'll admit it, I don't froth at the mouth at this kind of left brain sort of stuff, but it's applicable and it's necessary. So this interview actually covers the basic things that you need to know about. Think of it as like a checklist. Have you ticked these things off already? Or are these considerations that you haven't even thought about? Or maybe they're things that you've kind of non-prioritized or it's fallen by the wayside that could potentially shoot you in the foot later. So the intention of this interview is to help bring the awareness to you so you can look into these things further and set your business up for success. This information is not specific, it is general, it is an overview. After you listen to this episode, I want you to think about your own government, your own country's considerations in reference to your own business. We're both Aussies talking about this, so it may not be applicable to you in terms of the governing bodies. So enjoy this episode and have fun. Hello, Susana. Thank you for joining us today.
Hi, Olivia. Thanks for having me.
I am so excited to actually jump in and talk about the unsexy side of business with you. And this is definitely not my personal zone of genius. Like I know the basics, but definitely haven't worked in the area of what we're about to talk about. So some of the things that we're going to be covering today, guys, are things that you probably or may not have already thought about with your business. Things that often fall by the wayside and aren't considered sometimes essential at the very beginning. And so I'm going to be Susana's going to be talking to the left side of your brain today. It's going to be like the logical, rational reasoning, detail-orientated and practical information that you need to be paying attention to for your business. So Susana, tell us a bit about your background. So today we're going to be talking a bit about bookkeeping, accounting, basically how to make a business legitimate.
Yeah, so I've been working in the bookkeeping industry for about 16 years and I sort of fell into an accounting role and was in an accounting role for 11 of those years as well. And within that role, I did a lot of the business setup sort of stuff as well as the, accounting and bookkeeping as well. So I've kind of got an overall experience with, how to set up a business, what sort of business people should be setting up because there's different structures and that you can use and, how to do it yourself because you can pay someone to do it, but it is actually quite easy to go online and do these sorts of things yourself as well.
So in your opinion, what sort of things do people need to think about when they start their business? Like what I'm kind of thinking is things like ABNs, insurances, taxes, accounting, that sort of thing.
Yeah, definitely. So you definitely need an ABN and there are like 4 different structures as well. So your business is what you do, but you set yourself up as an entity. So a sole trader, you have a partnership, a company, a trust, and it really depends on what you're doing, how you're doing it, who you're doing it with as to whether one structure will work better for you than another. Generally, if you're on your own, you're getting started, you haven't got, all this equipment and all that sort of stuff. You're just like, you and I getting started, you'd probably go down the sole trader route. But you do need to look into that before you go ahead and apply for an ABN, because you need all that information for when you're setting that up. But you do definitely need an ABN. If you need a hand working that sort of thing out, a professional can help you. And then you need to work out whether you're going to be going over that GST threshold in Australia. So if you earn over 75,000 within a financial year, you need to look at registrations. You need to look at whether you're going to be employing people, because that's another registration you might need to look into as well. And your business name. So especially if you're going down a sole trader route, your ABN is just attached to your name, which is attached to your personal tax file number, but you might want to trade as a different name. So for instance, you're Olivia Powell, but you might want to trade as, professional coaching or something like that. Whatever the name is you choose, that name actually needs to be registered with a specific authority. In Australia, it's ASIC, so that it's a legal name that you can use on your invoices and that. And a lot of people don't realise that they actually need to register that name, because someone else might have already registered it and might already have the rights to it.
100%. And correct me if I'm wrong, if you apply for an ABN, that stays with you. So no matter what business, like this is what, from my understanding, so yeah, feel free to jump in. But from my understanding is when you register an ABN for your business, even if you change businesses, your ABN can remain the same, can't it? Your Australian business number. Yeah.
So if you go from, say, sewing, and then you want to go into business coaching, I know it's a big leap, but that ABN will stay the same as long as you're a sole trader. But if you were to change, if you want to go into partnership with someone, or you want to then move into a company or a trust, that's the only time the ABN would change, because you're going to a different structure. But other than that, your sole trader ABN will forever be your sole trader ABN, just like your tax file number.
Beautiful. So when would you suggest a female entrepreneur or business owner applies for an ABN? Is it something that they need to do right off the bat? Is it something that they can do a couple of months down the track? Is it something that they can leave for a couple of years into business? What would you suggest?
Yeah, so it really depends on why you're going into business, what your purpose is. And the Australian Taxation Office actually has a really good guide on their site, which helps people like us work out whether we're doing it for a business or whether we're considered a hobby. Generally speaking, if you're going into business to make money, you're a business. So you need to apply for that ABN. So if you're doing it with the purpose to make an income, it's obviously a business. If it's more of just an entertainment type, keep me busy, or if I make money sort of, that's all right. If I don't, that's all right too, then that's probably more of a hobby. But that guide on the ATO site is really handy, and it just steps you through a few questions, a few situations, and you can work out whether you should need that ABN. But generally speaking, if you're wanting to make money, you're a business, therefore you need that ABN.
So for those that don't know, an ABN obviously is more applicable to Australia than any other listeners right now, but it's really important to know this sort of thing because this might be applicable in your country. It may not be called ABN, it might be called something else, but it's about having a number that's allocated to your business. So when it comes to insurances, what should they actually be getting as part of their insurance for their business?
So insurance-wise, that's not my forte, but I do know that there are a lot of brokers out there. You can approach an insurance broker. You can tell them exactly what sort of stuff you're going to be doing in your business, your structure, and they will guide you in the best way possible to let you know which insurances you should have. Generally speaking, from a sole trader perspective, there's things like, professional indemnity. So if you're giving people professional advice, you want to protect yourself from, future, if you have a legal battle down the track or something like that, that might be an insurance you need. If you've got equipment, you're going to want, a business package which covers all your equipment, which covers public liability, that sort of thing. In Australia, if you have employees, you have to insure them. So workers' compensation is something you need to look into too. And there are a couple of other little insurances that may be applicable depending on what your business is, but I'd highly recommend speaking to an insurance professional and just having the conversation, because it costs nothing to have that initial conversation with them. Tell them exactly what you're going to be doing, how you're going to be doing it online, in person, and they will guide you with the best insurances that you should have. And insurance really isn't overly expensive. Definitely worth having though, because you need that protection.
Yeah, 100%. And the pricing, I imagine, varies quite a lot depending on your business, because businesses are so varied. There's so
Yeah.
many different types, and as you
Yep.
said, structures, how you structure your business and what you actually, claim as your quote unquote entity. So I know a lot of websites can guide you through that process to get like an idea or a quote of what your coverage is. And then you can even compare pricing to see what's in
Yep.
your price range and that sort of stuff too, which
Yep.
is really good and quite helpful, isn't it? Rather than, I guess it depends on how people want to do it, but I guess having a broker is kind of more thorough, because the way I kind of think of it is like, because I'm from a medical background, I think of it like this. I can either Google my symptoms and figure out what I might have or might need or what my treatment might be, or I can actually go visit a GP, like my local doctor, and get my personalized information for me, not like a general.
Exactly.
Yeah. Would you say that it's similar to that?
Similar, yeah, exactly. So you can, it's always good to be informed. So have a look online, but then, speaking to a professional, like I said, especially in this case, it doesn't cost you anything to have that conversation.
So when does your hobby become a business from a taxation or an accounting or legal perspective?
So referring back to that ATO booklet, you may start off as a hobby, and a lot of people do, especially MLM businesses. People start the MLM businesses. I know I went into mine with just I just wanted to get the discount, and I accidentally started selling it casually to some friends. But I wasn't doing it initially with the intent to make money from it. It just kind of happened every now and then at the beginning. But when you start doing things regularly, so that you can start making money and you start getting regular money from it, then it sort of switches over from that hobby to business. It's a very fine line, and it's always good when you're starting something as a hobby initially to really have a look and see, is it really a hobby? Why am I starting it? You ask yourself those few questions in that guide, and you will work it out, and you will see quite quickly if you're starting to make a decent amount of money. Because there's no a lot of people think there's $18,000 and then you're a business. That's not really the case. They think once you get the tax-free threshold, you're a business in Australia, but that's not the case. It's all about the intent behind what you're doing, what your intentions are, make money or not make money.
Yeah, that's really interesting actually, because when I saw my accountant a while back, this was so I had the intent to make money, but because I was just under the $10,000 mark in profit, and this was a while ago. And so I went to her to do my tax return and all this sort of jazz. They didn't actually, from memory, tax me because I hadn't made the $10,000 milestone. But apparently once I got over that, then they would start taxing, my income through my business, which was really interesting actually, because I didn't really have that I wasn't from that background, so I didn't really have that kind of awareness. So I sat there and I was like a part of me was a little bit offended, but then a part of me was really motivated.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, so they're not going to tax me because I'm not being taken seriously, righto. And then it just like fueled my fire to get going even more. Do you know what I mean? Because even I didn't want to be taxed, but I wanted to be taken seriously from a taxation perspective. I felt like I had something to prove back then, but obviously my mindset's changed about that now. But I guess once again, depending on the country you're in, what their laws are, their taxation laws, it's always good to suss out so you know where you stand. And every time tax time does come, have your things in order, which is actually a great segue into bookkeeping and accounting. So can you share with us a little bit about how you can do that in your new business or business that you're just launching, or maybe you've been in business for a little while but haven't taken, it's been a hobby business, but now you're actually starting to make consistent income and have that client database, so to speak, or ongoing customers and whatnot?
Yeah, so one of the things that I have seen a lot in what I do for people is that people come to you and they don't actually realise that they're supposed to, well, they know that they need to know how much money they're making, but they don't actually realise that they can, claim a deduction from the expenses they have with their business, and they haven't kept records, or they've got a couple of receipts, in their wallet or, tucked away somewhere. But getting that set up from the start makes it a lot easier, not just for you, but for someone that you're going to engage maybe later on to help you with it. And also here in Australia, we need to have records of these things when we have a business. So it's always handy to keep proper records for that perspective as well. But if you're getting started and you're new, a simple Excel spreadsheet will do the trick. You can have one sheet for your income. You don't even need to note down dates or anything specific, as long as it's within our financial year in Australia or wherever you're from. Just note down all the money that comes in, note down all the expenses that relate to making that money. So that's the kind of key. You can't claim everything in your life against your business, and some people kind of get confused as to why they can't claim, their nails or something because they need to have, sometimes you might be able to, but generally that's probably a no-no. But anything that relates to making your income, so that's sort of the key. For example, your internet expenses, you may do a lot of your work online, so that relates to making your income. Your phone bill, if you use your phone a lot, percentage of that can be. Stationery, if you have like any client gifts that you give out or products that you buy and then you sell, that sort of stuff. It's always handy to just note all that sort of stuff down. There are programs you can buy, but I always say to people, when you're new, you might not necessarily want to spend 30, 40, 50 bucks a month on a program when you're just getting started. There are some free ones, and I know there's Wave Accounting, which I use myself. It's free, really easy for someone to set up, really easy to use, and it keeps all those kind of records for you. And there's probably some others, but that one I really liked it because I thought anyone can kind of jump in and use it without any experience. And yeah, just even if you're not sure, just keep it to the side and you can always ask later on. It's just really important to make sure, especially your income, because the ATO definitely wants to know how much money you're making. If you happen to miss an expense, they're not going to be worried. But if you happen to miss some income, they may be. But just, make sure that the expenses relate to making your money. That's the key. If you're unsure, you just ask yourself that question.
Yeah, exactly. And for those that live overseas and may not have, or know what the ATO is, over here it's the Australian Taxation Office. So I know for me, some of the things that I've claimed or kept record of are things like my podcasting equipment too, guys. So like if you have a podcast or want to start one, if you get a microphone, if you get equipment, keep those receipts. And if they're digital receipts, in your emails, you can actually create folders. And this is what I do. So I have folders for everything. I'm a folder freak, right? I've got folders for my clients. I've got folders for my appointments. I've got folders for my team. I've got folders for specifically expenses of the business. So the incoming revenue, outgoing expenses, things that I've invested in and hired out and outsourced. So things like my virtual assistant, Pinterest manager, podcast manager, my coach. So when you start to get to that point too, it's super important to actually keep track of that. And one thing I've learned as well is when you're contracting out or when you're hiring someone for their services, if they are overseas. Hi guys, I'm jumping into this audio with a client audio message that I have to share with you guys because she started her business in 2020, and this is just to show how quick and inexpensive it can be to set up your business from scratch. This particular client is very accomplished in her field of work. However, prior to working together, she had no previous business experience. Please excuse the dog noises in the background. Here is Nicole.
Hi, my name is Nicole Wyborn. I am a nurse, midwife and lactation consultant from Newcastle, Australia. And I've just been invited to talk a little bit about how I came to set up my private practice lactation business. I'm quite new to this. This is not something that I have a great deal of experience in, but I was quite amazed at what I actually accomplished in the first 4 weeks when I actually prioritised my time to do this and just set aside small blocks so that I could look at what I had to do and then actually do it. I also work close to full-time hours and I'm a single mum of 2 children who are 11 and 16. So I actually did this in our summer holidays in between work and also looking after and entertaining my children. So what I actually did was I actually found it really overwhelming in the beginning. I'm not familiar with the language that's used. That I actually found overwhelming in itself, and people were talking about points of difference, and that's not something that I am really familiar with. It's not terms I'm used to using. So I just set aside about actually just doing it and then just seeing what happened. So the first thing I did was I registered my business, and in 4 short weeks, I actually had achieved this. I registered my business. I had applied for and got my professional memberships for lactation consultancy. I had organised my insurances. I had started the process of getting health fund recognition with some of our health funds. I'd ordered my business cards. I had set up an appointment to review consultation rooms, because there's a few ways that you can run your private practice. You can actually do home visits, or you can have a consultation room, or you can do both. And you can also do online, which is I'll get to shortly. So for me, trying to work out how I'm going to juggle my professional work as a midwife and then doing my private practice lactation, I came to the conclusion that having some rooms to consult in would be ideal. So I could have a set morning every week where women could come and see me, and going about finding those rooms actually was quite interesting. And it was interesting how that happened. So I had set up an appointment to review this particular consultation room. I had also set up an Instagram account and also a Facebook page for my business. My business is actually Nourish Lactation. So I'm not a huge tech person either. And I'm definitely not familiar with Instagram. So setting that up was quite an achievement. Not only had I done that, but I learnt how to use WordSwag, and I had set up 10 posts so that I could actually just release them every day for about the first 2 weeks. So I was able to do that, and also link in with some other businesses that had products to do with lactation, and I also purchased some of their samples. So once I actually set up my Facebook page, within the first day I had 5 recommendations from colleagues to women that I had looked after and consulted with. So that was really positive for me. And I had also purchased my materials that I needed to do one-to-one or group consulting or group education as well. So all of that actually cost less than $400. It took 4 weeks, and how I actually covered that cost was I simply did an extra weekend shift in my paid job. So it didn't end up being as overwhelmingly difficult or as expensive as I had first thought. And in recording this, I am now a further 6 weeks along. So I'm now 10 weeks into setting up my Nourish Lactation business. And since then, in the last 6 weeks, additionally, I have my clinic rooms. I have actually had 2 full weeks of consultation times in my clinic. I have done numerous home visits for people in lactation. I've actually had my photo taken and did a video for Instagram TV and also Facebook. And that is actually a very big thing for me, because I don't particularly like having my photo taken, and I definitely don't particularly understand social media, but I am definitely learning as I go along. I'm setting up workbooks for my programs. I have developed programs and packages in lactation, and that is still ongoing. And I have started videos for doing online education for lactation. Now, that is actually something that I had originally thought I would do closer towards the end of the year, once I had set up more of my individual consultation and small group education practice. However, with the way that our world is at the moment, with the coronavirus, that has been brought forward and made a priority. I have a business coach and a life coach. And that in the past is something that I wouldn't have done. It's something that I would have viewed and deemed as an expense I couldn't afford. However, I had a really big mind shift change in that I am now backing myself, and I believe that I can do this. I'm actually very passionate about what I do. I believe I can do this. I really enjoy helping women and families and babies in their whole journey into parenthood, motherhood, and their baby's growth and development. So I actually saw this as an investment into myself, believing in myself that this is actually going to be successful. This is not only going to be successful, it's going to grow, and I'm really looking forward to it. So that is my journey into my Nourish Lactation business.
So there you have it. I hope you guys enjoyed listening to that. I am so proud of Nicole and how quick she just delved right in. She didn't hold back, even in the midst of coronavirus. And it's already paid off. She's already attracted her own clients and been paid for that too. So let's get back to the episode with Susana. And one thing I've learned as well is when you're contracting out or when you're hiring someone for their services, if they are overseas, so a lot of my team is overseas, like Vietnam, America, they might have on their tax invoice what it is in their money exchange. So it might be in USD, which is, obvious, or CAD, which is Canadian money. Make sure that they can have AUD on your tax invoice so it's easy and more accurate for you to record and keep on top of. Or if they can't do that, have a note, like a little note section on the invoice just saying this is in AUD, this is such and such. So it's easier for you and it's easier for your accountant. 2 other things I would recommend is online software. So at the start of this year, I actually purchased a thing that helps me. It's called Plannerly, and it actually helps you schedule your content. That was I paid for the per annum one instead of the monthly one because it was cheaper and it just seemed to make sense. So that's another thing that you can claim. Even apps that you purchase, through your phone to create images or whatever. And I know there's some actually, I think, Susana, you might know more about this. There's some apps for actual bookkeeping and tax purpose stuff. Like there's this app, I think, or probably a couple, where you record it all in there and then you literally just give access to your accountant.
Definitely. I know our, Australian Taxation Office has one. And I think even with the Australian Taxation Office app, it actually uploads, this is probably more for a personal rather than a business, but it actually uploads direct to your tax return, stuff like that. But yeah, you can scan receipts in there. Like I said, anything that's in relation to making your business, that's all claimable. And so many people don't realise that.
Totally. What would you say if you've got someone who's sitting here and they're going, oh my gosh, because I know for me, I'm more like the fun creative type. So I'm like, woo, I'm more right-sided brain thinking with a little bit of left. So whenever it comes to real detail orientated, all this sort of real practical stuff, I know for me, I can feel quite overwhelmed when I'm delving into this sort of stuff, and it takes a lot of energy for me to concentrate and go through all the fine print. What would you say to someone that is similar? What would you say to them so it makes the process easier for when they are shopping around for insurances or thinking about getting better with their bookkeeping skills for their business and that sort of thing?
For starters, just be clear on what you're doing, know what you're doing and know what works best for you. So I know some people that prefer to use the good old book and pencil sort of thing, and they like to record everything that way. Some people prefer cloud stuff, apps. Some people prefer an accounting program. Try and figure out what might work best for you. And just once you might need to trial a few different things. That's okay too. But once you work it out, just have a good process in place so that, you're not spending too much time on it so it doesn't overwhelm you. But do a little bit, once a week or once a month, depending on how much volume of receipts and stuff you have, so that you're keeping on top of those mundane sort of things. Because even though that's what that's my profession, that's what I know, it doesn't overly excite me either. So I just put aside, a little bit of time a week for my business, and that's when I go in and do all that sort of fun stuff.
I love it. This is the thing too, right? So I'm definitely the pen and paper sort of gal. I'm a 90s 90 baby, right? So I have the physical diary. I don't have a diary on, I do have a calendar online, but everything's in my written diary. And it's the same when it comes to my taxes and my bookkeeping. I have to have it in front of me with the pages that I can turn. Otherwise it just overwhelms me. So I guess you can integrate both and somehow make it work for you as well if you do get overwhelmed. And this is the other thing too, guys, in terms of taxation. So those that are in my Facebook group or have been following me, you'll know that I was planning to move to Bali for 6 months. And at the time, I was actually getting in contact with an accountant who specifically helps digital nomads move overseas and work out, their taxation obligations and all this sort of stuff. So that's another thing to be mindful of is if you move overseas, just be wary that your taxation might be different. You might be taxed differently. You've got all the conversions along with that. So just keep that in mind. And One beautiful thing about having an online business, in my opinion, is that there's low overheads. So what I mean by that is you're not paying for a shop front. You're not paying to rent a building or a room or anything like that. It's all online. So you actually get to save money in that aspect. And another thing too, I thought I'd just bring up is, so I've got a client who is a registered midwife and she started her lactation consulting business this year. And so she was really great actually. She set up all the back end of her business, all the processes, all the structures, all of this stuff that we're talking about right now. And then she was ready to jump in and take on clients straight away. Now, because she works in the health system or she has this health service, so to speak, she could actually link up her business to Medicare, which is what we have in Australia, which is really cool. So do you know anything about that, Susana, or stuff that they might need for that?
I don't know specifically. I have spoken to someone who's similar in the health sort of industry where they do chiropractic sort of stuff, but, mobile. And they said that they jumped on the Medicare site and they had a look around and they were quite, happy with how they could work out how to link it all up. But, yeah, it's definitely something they can do, and I've been told it's not difficult, not something I've had to personally look into though.
Yeah, neither have I actually. And what's good for her clients too is like they get a little bit of that back, like the rebate, which is really cool and serves the customer too. So what I thought we'd move on to is, so we're putting out content around what we would recommend that people do in their businesses. So let's look at what would happen if they don't do these things. Obviously, we don't know all the ins and outs, but the probability of might happen if they don't take charge and set this stuff up would be, in your opinion, if people don't, obviously if they don't pay their taxes, that's considered tax fraud, yeah? So
yeah, and it could eventually catch up with them because the tax office are getting smarter and smarter all the time. They've got things, in processes in place that we probably don't even realise. But just as an example, the construction industry in Australia is very much known as a cash industry where people would pay cash for a service and then that tradie would just pocket that money and not claim it. Or they'd get money from, a bigger company and they wouldn't claim it because there was kind of no way to monitor that. But the ATO have actually got processes in place now where in that industry, everyone actually has to record exactly who they've paid to, how much they've paid to, and now they can cross-check. So if so-and-so has been told by the ATO that these 3 companies paid them, say, $10,000 each, but they've only claimed 10 of that in their tax return, they're going to get caught out eventually. And the ATO have access to everything, like our bank statement. They can see, they can monitor all that stuff. So you need to be really clear. And it's always just best to just do the right thing because you don't want to have to try and fix it later because you're probably going to miss out on a lot of the deductions that you would have been eligible for if you get caught out down the track.
That's so true, hey. And then it's harder to catch up and then it's more rework and more of your time, stress, energy, and it's just not worth it, hey?
No, definitely not. Definitely not.
One thing I do like though about card payments for my own purposes is I find it much easier to track and trace what I've been spending and in what section in my business and that sort of stuff. So obviously for some people, you're not trying to do tax fraud, but you're trying to escape paying tax. It's like that the cash system might work for you, even though it's technically wrong. But for me, I actually find it easier to actually use my card so I can know where everything's going. But that's just for my own records, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. And a lot of people, don't have a separate bank account for their business too.
Oh, yes.
As a sole trader, it may not really be a massive issue, but you have to account for everything in that account. So if you're using personal and business all through one account, you have to account for everything. So you're actually using a lot of time up saying, this was personal, this was personal, this was personal. If you separated them out, your business end stuff probably isn't as time consuming.
Yes. So one thing I talk to my clients about, especially if they're new in business, is to have a separate bank account, to set up one to begin with. That's just for business. Because when you have payments in that account, you can keep track of the ingoing and outgoing expenses. And as you said, you don't have to try and justify, yep, this is personal, that's business, and sift through it. Because once again, it's more time and we don't have time for that crap, And also having a card for that account too is quite good. So if you need to make an online purchase or, you need to pay someone for something, it's once again separated and it's just easier. Don't you want life to be easier and more convenient?
Exactly. It's easier to track and to keep on top of it all.
Yeah, exactly. And if you don't track it, so I made the mistake in my first business of not properly keeping track. And I tell you what, it really stressed me out when it came to tax time. So can you give any other tips around what we've spoken about?
And I'll just reiterate, be clear on how you want to track things, because you don't want to have receipts and income in like 10 different places, because eventually you do have to kind of pull it all together. So try and pick the medium that is best for you. Keep hold of all your receipts, because even though we can, keep it online, we still need to have the receipt, even if it's online or physically, because we may need to use that, especially in Australia. We have to keep the records for up to 7 years, and definitely look at the different bank account, because so many people get overwhelmed because of the volume of transactions in their bank that they have to process, when we're really like 75% of that could be removed if they just had that separate account for their business. And just be, know what expenses relate to making your income, making your money, and be very clear on that and know exactly what you're using that expense for.
Yeah, beautiful. I so agree. And in regards to receipts, once again, in Australia, our receipts, they seem to fade really quickly with the text on them and the date and the costs and all this sort of stuff. So what I recommend doing if you have a physical receipt is actually to scan it or copy it on your computer and save it there into, once again, a folder, because I'm a folder freak. Make it easy.
Yeah.
Make it super easy. Yeah. So you don't have to go through that overwhelm and that fear of like, oh my God, what's going to happen? How long is this going to take me? And then you procrastinate and put it off. Yeah. What kind of apps or software that people can go to, in terms of like what their names are, that you can refer them to go to, I guess, so that they can keep track?
So I know with an iPhone, we can actually use the notes section on our standard phone to scan stuff.
Oh.
So it actually scans, and because you can have folders in there now. So it's actually a little inbuilt thing, which is quite handy. You could do it that way. I love the Wave accounting app, which is a cloud-based app. It's a website, but you can actually get an app for your phone for it. So you can access the cloud-based program anywhere, wherever you are, you can log in. But if you don't have access to a browser, you can actually have an app on your phone which will allow you to do some basic stuff like invoicing. So as long as you set it up properly, you can just jump on and quickly do an invoice on your app and email it off from your phone. So you're still able to do that without sitting down on a computer, which is really handy. But have a look. I'm sure, like I said before, in Australia, the ATO have an app which allows you to scan and save stuff. That's free. You may have one in the country where you're from. So have a look at the governing body in relation to taxes and see what they have available, because this day and age, they want to provide that sort of stuff because they want you to have the best outcome possible and to, be able to record all your information correctly. But again, as I said, you don't need to use any of the fancy stuff. The simple Excel spreadsheet is really handy too. I will say though, one app that I've fallen in love with it's called Time Manager, and you can actually record the time. Like if you need to know how much time you spent on a job, or you want to make note of, how much to bill someone, that's a handy little app that you can actually record stuff in for when you get home to invoice, if that's what you're doing.
That's really cool. I love that. And also like having an online payment system really helps too. So there's things like, Square Reader, PayPal, Stripe, all of that can actually keep your details of your transactions or customers, clients, all that sort of stuff. So it's already recorded there. You don't have to go back and, manually write each time that you have a session with a client or each time you sell a product. It's like, it's all there. So if you just be good with maintaining that, it's going to really work in your favor when tax time comes.
Yeah, and I know with Square, you can jump in there and print a report for the financial year. So you can actually go in there and see how much money you made, what their fees were, how much they transferred to you, and you can just print that off. And that's something that you can literally hand to a bookkeeper or accountant and go, can you record that for me? And they'll be able to do that for you.
Yeah, so easy. Like, the whole KISS principle, keep it simple, stupid. Do you know what I mean? Like, just keep it easy, convenient, simple, and just be good at maintaining your records, I guess, to save you stress down the track. And I already know the answer to this, but let's just ask it anyway for the audience. Can you claim, like if you have a business coach, can you claim the costs that you've spent or invested in your business with that?
100%. Because having a business coach is like training. You're learning, you're growing, you're developing. So personal development, as long as it's, going to help you with your income. So that's what the ATO kind of look at. in Australia. If it's something that will help you earn more money or will help you, better what you're doing to earn money, it's claimable.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
A business coach, definitely. So that's what they're there for. They're there to help you grow as a person, grow your business, do things better. So 100% deductible, which is great.
Yeah, because I think a lot of people overlook that and don't really realize that. Once again, I tell my clients, I'm like, you can totally claim this. This is benefiting you, and I had a client that isn't a business client, but she's in a management position. So she claims it through an expense for her job because it's helped her in her management role and her management skills and all of that sort of stuff, which is really great.
Yeah, 100%. As a personal, as an individual that doesn't have a business. That's personal development. That's going to, again, help her get that promotion or, get that pay rise. So, definitely claimable.
Awesome. So just to recap, everybody. So firstly, when you start a business, think about, are you doing it as a hobby business or as a legitimate actual want to make a profit business? Think about, or actually go ahead and find out what insurances you need, figure out the costs and the coverage it gives you. Think about registering your business number. So in Australia, it's an ABN. Overseas, it might be called something else. Think about taxes. So once again, either go to your accountant or whoever that's actually the right person in your country to help you with that. And keep track of your bookkeeping, ingoing, outgoing expenses, your accounting, the whole kit and caboodle. And if you are hiring people or employing people, just know that that's an extra thing on top of what is already going on in your business. So just being aware of that is really important. So anything else you want to add, Susana, or do you think we've covered everything?
I think we've pretty much covered everything, but when in doubt, just ask. Find someone that can help you. I know here in Australia, you can call the ATO and they can give you basic guidance, or they can direct you to somewhere on that site, which will give you some information to help you make that decision. Don't try go it alone if you're not sure, but things like your ABN registration and that, just be careful, and your business name, because there's a lot of third-party entities out there on the internet, which will do these registrations for you for a fee, okay, an extra fee. An ABN is free if you go through the proper website in Australia. And the Australian, a business name registrar, you can go through a third party too, but they'll charge you an extra fee. And it's really easy to do yourself through the ASIC website here in Australia. Really easy, and it probably costs you a third of the price. So just be aware that you'll see a lot of, if you type in business name registration, you'll probably see a whole bunch of other ones come up before you see the ASIC website show up. Just make sure you're going directly through the governing authority first and have a look there before you go to a different website, because they will be charging you more. And it's really simple to do yourself.
That's great advice. I think that's a really good, handy thing to add. So thank you for that. Yeah, and thank you for sharing your wealth of knowledge, pun intended.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Oh, anytime. So where can people find you online, Susana, if they want to connect with you?
So I am on Instagram and on Facebook. My business page at the moment is called Destiny Beauty. I am looking to rebrand very soon though. But Destiny Beauty is my name on Instagram and Facebook. And I do everything. Not everything, but I have a couple of little different aspects to my business, but I do some bookkeeping stuff as well at the moment.
Beautiful. Excellent. Thank you so much.
No worries. Thanks for having me again.
Hiya, cool cats, or should I say podcats? Get it? Cool cats that listen to podcasts are podcats. Is there such a thing as a cat bum joke? Because if so, I just made one. Well, I thought it was funny. Anyway, I'm here to tell you that starting my podcast was one of the best decisions I've ever made for myself and my business. P.S. I started my podcast before I started my online coaching practice. Let me tell you why this was the best decision ever. Firstly, through podcasting, I've been able to speak directly to my ideal listeners and into their ears and lovable hearts and open minds, which has truly helped me build the intimacy with my tribe like no other platform has before. Through this podcast, I have attracted soul clients who are aligned with my core values, my energy, my mindset, which has allowed me to develop a beautiful rapport with them, leading to us working together. This meant that I was able to help these individuals in a deeper and more meaningful way because they became premium one-to-one clients, and some of them even opted into my online program last year. Through this podcast, I have also organically built my listenership from scratch. Yes, that's right, 0 people listening. There was crickets. To over 10,000 downloads in just over 12 months. So I've got a few questions for you. Since listening to this podcast, have you been thinking about starting your very own podcast for your business? Are you even thinking about starting your own business now? Have you been listening to me, aka Olivia, and thinking, well, blow me down, Olivia, I could totally do this as well? Maybe you've even been experiencing some intuitive nudges to jump on the podcasting bandwagon yourself. Or maybe you're a wannabe female entrepreneur who wants to start their business or grow their business or attract multiple ideal clients and customers. Or perhaps you already have an existing business or an existing podcast, but you're just not seeing the results that you were hoping for. You know that feeling when you look at the download number and you go, oh, that's so disappointing. Or you look in the bank account and you're feeling discouraged and frustrated. You know what? If I didn't spend 3 to 6 months farting around with my podcast and my business and had more direction, I reckon I would have reached that 10,000 download milestone much faster and in under 12 months, which is the perfect segue into my next point. Are you wondering how I actually did that? Well, I don't know about you, but there was a point in time where I was just spinning my wheels and feeling lost. I was putting out content, I wasn't getting any bites, I wasn't getting much engagement. I really didn't know what direction I was even heading, to be quite honest. Having a niche and a specialty area and something that I was known for in my business and my podcast was a part of the secret sauce. Not having a niche will cost you. You will be leaving moolah on the table without even knowing it. Are you currently stuck not knowing what to post or what content to create that gets attention and ends up leading to sales and converting? Because not knowing how to market yourself, not knowing your niche, and not knowing how to attract these clients and customers and listeners is also going to cost you. It's going to cost you time, your money, and your effort. So if you're sitting here and listening and going, Olivia, what do I do? What do I post? Where do I even post it? How do I grow my podcast to getting the 10,000 downloads? How do I make the consistent income in my business? How do I monetize my podcast? How? Help me. I know many of you guys are feeling overwhelmed and perhaps even have some fear that is leading to procrastination. And you guessed it. That is getting in your way, keeping you stuck and capping you in business. However, I am ready to take away the confusion and the overwhelm for you and give you the direction and the guidance that you need to start and to run a successful business and podcast. I have learned through my own personal and professional mistakes and wins and trials and errors over the past 16 months and have figured out what actually works and what doesn't, which is going to save you that time, energy, money, confusion, frustration, and overwhelm. And I have news for you. I am bringing all of the juicy answers, the elite secrets, to those of you who want them. I may or may not be metaphorically jumping up and down on my mini home trampoline right now because this is an opportunity that I've wanted to bring to you guys for so long. I will be sharing all of my juicy answers in, drum roll please, wish I had some drums, but you get the picture. I am bringing to you a beginner podcast and business bundle. Yay! Where I will be showing you exactly how to start, grow, and monetize your business and your podcast from scratch, bring in consistent money every week, monetize your podcast, and reach the 10,000 download milestone in under 12 months while keeping it fun and simple. Yeah, so you can take action and start speaking your dream business and podcast into existence. I'm going to teach you how to nail your niche, pinpoint your podcast in terms of how to speak to and attract your ideal customer, client, and listener through your very own business and or podcast. It can be one or the other, or it can be both. I'm going to show you the technical setup, structure, and processes on how to actually put these things together, how to ensemble it from a technical and a creative standpoint. How to build your online presence, have a personal brand, craft your unique messaging that stands out in the market and sets you apart in your industry, as well as how and where the heck to promote this podcast and your business, because there are so many different social media platforms these days. There's Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, YouTube, LinkedIn, Twitter, Reddit, and so on. It can be quite overwhelming. I'm going to teach you how to actually enjoy sales so it doesn't feel icky AF, yeah? I'm going to help you manage yourself, your energy, and your mindset, teach you all the tools and strategies that you need so you know how to manage yourself better, how to fit all of this into your life, your lifestyle, and your schedule to set you up for long-term success. Because that's what it's all about, yeah? We want a successful long-term business. We want a successful long-term podcast. And most important, I want to help you be able to actually make money doing what you love and what you feel passionate about. And if this is resonating with you, this program is 100% for you, lady friend. So you're probably wondering, Olivia, spill the beans. What's the details? Give us the goss. So your homegirl is bringing you all of the above in a condensed 8-week online program where you will receive 8 classes and 2 extra bonus trainings as well. You will also receive fortnightly live and high-touch access and accountability with me. You will also have exclusive access to a community of like-minded women just like yourself. And I just want to reiterate that this bundle is for those of you who actually either just want the podcast or just want the business or want the combination of both. There is also going to be a VIP option, which is unlimited Voxer access to me, directly to me, outside of the program with any questions or any additional support that you need. This is something that I often provide to my premium one-to-one clients, and you will have this upgraded experience for those 8 weeks. This bundle I am only making available to 6 women. Why? Because I want to give these women with a very intimate, high-quality experience with my undivided attention as their personal coach for those 8 weeks. And if I have too many in the program, I won't be able to provide that. That's why it's limited to just 6 ambitious beauties. This whole bundle is supposed to help you get up and off the ground, move from confusion to clarity, and from procrastination to being very productive. So when does this all start? So it starts the 1st of June 2020. I've given you guys plenty of time to learn about this program, to get on the wait list and become an early bird. So be that lady boss with lady balls, make this investment, and when you're ready to become one of these 6 women, send me an email at oliviapowcoaching@gmail.com or head to my Instagram, look up your homegirl at oliviapowcoaching and send me a DM to register. I cannot wait to see you cool podcats on the inside of this bundle. Thank you so much for tuning in and for spending this beautiful time together on the Slaying Your Side Hustle podcast. I am so glad that you stopped by, and if you want to stop by again, then hit the subscribe button for future episodes. For more beyond this podcast, you can email me at oliviapowcoaching@gmail.com, or you can even send me a Facebook DM telling me what you thought and what you'd like to hear more of. Feel free to hang out with me on Instagram, tag me, or share my stuff on your stories, whatever you like. If you could just take 1 second to share this episode with someone who would love it, then that would truly be amazing, and this would continue to contribute to the greater good by spreading the love to thousands and thousands of like-minded entrepreneurial and business women around the globe. Isn't that a cool thought? I think so too. See you in the next episode.